and welcome to all of you who are here this morning. I'd like to call our meeting to order and do our roll call, please, gentlemen. Is there any information about? Okay, we'll wait on that and just have them as not present. Okay, this morning Commissioner McLaughlin will do our invocation, and Commissioner Smith will do our the opposite, pledge and invocation. Thank you. Please, thank you.
Let us pray. Dear Father, we thank you that we're able to gather here today and talk over the business of your people. We pray that you will endow us with wisdom and understanding of the issues that we have before us. Be with each one present, be with the ones that are present by way of television today, and the ones that are here in this office. And we ask your blessings upon each and every one present, and also on all the commissioners here today. It's in your holy name that we pray. And all the people said, Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will accept a motion for approval of agenda.
Second.
Madam Chairman, let's take off item 6 on the consent agenda.
And move to decisions.
And move to, we can move it to manager's report. I'll make it item G.
Okay.
That's page 15, Mr. Garrett.
Yes, sir.
That's the one you and I were talking about.
It's actually already on there. Item D is a highlight. So if you want to take action on it.
Okay, fine. It's already on item D.
It's going to be
fine.
presented. You'll present it, and then we'll take action on
Correct,
the
but you can combine it.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
So we're going to do it as is.
As is. Okay, any other? Okay, let's vote, please. Okay, our first item of business is a recognition for one of our employees who is retiring, who has 30 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Plus. And we would like to ask Levi Raspberry to come forward, please. Can I have a motion to?
Motion to approve
Second.
the resolution.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Just to let the public know and the citizens know, we generally do a resolution for anyone who has been an employee for 30 plus years instead of just doing our recognition at our regular employee recognition. And we're very happy when we've had somebody who's been with us 30 years. Would you read the resolution?
Yes, and also if I can just note, Mr. Raspberry is one of our first employees in the month of July who will be leaving as part of the Early Retirement Incentive Program. So we'll have others we'll recognize in for the August, September departure dates, but just wanted to note that. So we have a resolution. It says Resolution of Appreciation honoring Levi E. Raspberry III for his years of service with Pitt County government, whereas Levi E. Raspberry III has served the citizens of Pitt County faithfully during his career from July 9th, 1979 to June 29th, 2012. Whereas Levi started his career on July 9th, 1979 with Pitt County as a computer operator in the data processing department, later advancing to the position of programmer and ultimately serving as the operations manager and now what is known as the Management Information Systems Department. This is being since January 1, 1985. Whereas Levi began with the Pitt County data processing during a time when Pitt County provisioned the computing environment for Pitt County Memorial Hospital, the City of Greenville, and Pitt County Schools, in addition to the departments of county government. Whereas Levi participated in the consolidation and transformation of the batch processing centric mainframe environment to a dynamic real-time networked environment providing 24-hour accessibility to departments and citizens. Whereas Levi was instrumental with the installation of a fiber optic network between county facilities through a collaborative project with GUC, ECU, Pitt County Memorial Hospital, and the City of Greenville, resulting in an interagency connectivity. Whereas Levi participated in the establishment of a remote data center with repurposed space in the last courthouse renovation, providing redundancy and high availability of technology services to county departments. Whereas Levi played an important part with the early implementation of voice over internet protocol telephony, it's a hard word, resulting in over $400,000 in annual savings. Whereas Levi gave unsparingly of his time, skill, commitment, energy, and enthusiasm in all he undertook to do during his tenure with Pitt County. Whereas in his spare time, Levi enjoys sports of all kinds and cooking for all of his family and friends at Pitt County government. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pitt County Board of Commissioners does hereby honor Levi E. Raspberry III for his commitment to the Pitt County Management Information Systems Department and for his outstanding and admirable services to the citizens of Pitt County. This is adopted this 4th day of June 2012, signed by our chairman, Beth B. Ward, and attested by our clerk, Kimberly Hines.
Congratulations. It sounds like you helped us get started in the technology world. Thank you for all you've done.
Ms. Ward, I'd like for the come back up, please, sir. I'd like for the chairman to, the manager to expound upon this $400,000 annual saving so that the citizen can see what this man really did.
Sure. The project was our telephones before we had them voice over, it's a VoIP, voice over internet protocol. We actually had phone lines that came in, we paid for, that went to basically all the desks. When we put it over the computer system, all of the phone calls come in through the computer network, and by doing that, we're not paying for various phone lines on all the employees, but we're paying for a much smaller number that come in that are then the technology is distributed over the telephone network. So it's resulted in tremendous savings. That $400,000 is not just one-time savings. That is savings that's duplicated year to year to year to year.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take care. Enjoy your retirement. Okay, our next item of business is our public address to the board, and we have two people signed up, and Mr. Sutton, where are you? Hi. You may want to speak now, but if you would like to wait, because this item is on the agenda.
Your specific item is on the agenda later, but you could speak now if you wanted.
You can speak now if you want to, but your item is on the agenda.
Right.
And you can speak then, so whichever you would like to do.
Whatever your preference is.
Okay, it's not, you're welcome to speak, but if you want to speak during the time that we're presenting it, you can do it then, either one.
I'd like to do it now.
Okay, that'll be great, Mr. Sutton. Little nervous, get it behind you. Come right ahead.
I'm easy to get along with.
We won't bite.
But
We
you
are
gave me
too.
the option, and I'll take it.
We try to be. The one thing about the public address is you have 3 minutes.
Won't take me that long.
Okay, all right, thank you.
This is an easy one. Now you start counting. Madam Chairman, Commissioners, and staff, I thank you for the cooperation that you've given me in putting this together and listening to me this morning. But we're here to request relocation of the Page Family Cemetery, which is located in the Bells Fork community. It will be relocated to Homestead Memorial Gardens. I have the only heir here with me, Mrs. Julia Anna Page Allen, who's a granddaughter of the two primary people we're talking about relocating. The statute requires us to make reasonable search to locate the next of kin. The two people that we're talking about are Walter Marcellus and Ludenia Mills Page, who this is the granddaughter. They had two children, Robert Glenn Page, who is dead, and Geneva Edwards Page, who is dead, that They did not have any children. Luther Martin Page is dead, and Ruby Willis Page is dead, who they had 2 children. Juliana Page Allen, who's beside of me, and 1 child, which is a sibling of hers that's buried in this cemetery. It's unnamed. So we feel like we have done a reasonable search. We ran a public notice in the paper May 1st, 8th, 15th, and 22nd. Homestead Memorial Gardens was the desired cemetery by the family, and the statute requires that Unity Free Will Baptist Church pay for the move, which they have agreed to. I have finished my presentation. If you have any questions for either me or the heir, I would be glad to obtain them at this time.
Thank you very much. But what we will do at this time, if it's okay with the board, is move this item, which is on our decision agenda, if that's okay, Madam Attorney?
That would be allowable. The only action is to approve the resolution, which is on page 28 of your package.
Right, okay, thank you. I'll start down here and come. I saw Mr. Owens, Mr. James, and then Mr. Smith. Mr. Owens?
Am I to imply that there were only 3 graves in this plot?
That's correct.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
Madam
Mr.
Chairman,
James?
I move that we approve the resolution that has been sent before us, be approved.
Okay, is
Second.
there a second?
Second.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak? Okay, let's take a vote then. It's passed and it's all behind.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, all of you. Okay, let me get back on it. Okay, and then we have another person else for public address. Good morning, Cherie.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. I'm Cherie Speller, and I'm chairperson of Greenville Pitt Public Access Television, commonly known as GPAT, and is shown on 23 on Suddenlink Cable. I'm here to ask you to please to continue to fund this channel, which you have done through some cooperative agreements with the City of Greenville. I hope each of you have received a letter that I and our board members have sent to you, reminding you of the benefits of our channel. I won't repeat all of them, but I do want to highlight how we're different from the other 3 channels, access channels in the county, including your own county channel, the Greenville City channel, and also the ECU channel. First and foremost, we are the only channel in the county that is open to all Pitt County citizens. The programs submitted by the county citizens range from musical entertainment to plays to arts to religious programs. I have my grandmother's 90th birthday celebration on that channel, and you can do the same as well. No other channel in the county, any access channel, will allow a citizen to do that. Second is the channel support of the county's nonprofits. We have a series hosted by Mary Smith of Real Crisis, where representatives of nonprofits explain their services, how they work, their needs in the community, and they can help people know what's available to them through our nonprofits. There are over 400 of them. We're well on our way to representing many of them, having their programs on our channel. We also have a series called GPAT Neighborhood that informs citizens about various efforts in the county, such as the Village of Yesteryear and efforts to end homelessness. Many of these programs note increased interest in their services after their program airs on the channel. All of these services are provided to these cash-strapped nonprofits free of charge. They come into our studio and we provide the programming for them, and they're able to explain how they can help the citizens of Pitt County and also whatever needs they might have. The third is the channel's exclusive ability to help educate citizens during elections. GPAT offers candidates on a Pitt County ballot the opportunity to introduce themselves, to talk about the issues of their platforms. We're the only channel in the county that can do that and provide, help the citizens decide who they like to elect to office. So GPAT clearly offers a unique service in the community. In our 2012-2013 budget, we have an income of $69,200. The county funds $16,000 was funding $16,000 to represent about 23% of our budget, which for us is a major chunk, nearly a quarter of our income. We were not notified by the county staff until the end of April that funds for the channel were not just reduced, but deleted from the county budget. There was no prior notice or discussion about the effect 23% of cuts would have on us. Thank you for your attention.
Were you finished? I mean, if you could have
Just a little more.
Just
Thank
a
you.
second more to wrap up.
Okay. And so that's important to us. We've basically had less than 2 months to figure out how we would replace 23% of our budget. Fortunately, though, by the grace of the Lord, I do believe, the state has agreed, it's given access channels in the state more funding this year, which will help close that gap pretty much. But we do still have a shortage that we would like the county to consider funding so that we can keep our program operating as we intended for next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cherie. Appreciate your comment. I just want to say that this is on our manager's report, and he's going to give some information on that at
Great,
that
thank
time. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
That was my concern. Certainly, I've been abreast of all of the communication that's been going on this channel. And the manager, I did talk to the manager about that, and you said you did have something to talk about.
He's going to share with us
All
at
right.
the
Very
manager's
good.
report. Thank you, Mr.
All
right.
McGaughy.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we go to the manager's report. Manager Elliott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On the,
I'm sorry, I didn't sign you up, but yes, I mean, you didn't sign yourself up, so come ahead. Yes, sir, that's fine.
My name's Mike Leach. I live at 103 Briarwood Drive, and I'll be within the 3-minute time limit. As I've stated previously and communicated, I really do believe there's a flaw in the evaluation process used in 2012. A lot changed in the world, the biggest recession, the fact property values didn't go up. However, on May 9th, the Board of Equalization lowered my personal home $27,000. If it had been increased $51,000. If the Department of Revenue doesn't lower my Pitt County value, it'll have increased by $24,000 last year, which is unreasonable. All of the other 56 properties in Old West Haven also increased in 2012. I know I'm being redundant. This has been addressed before. All of the unimproved properties I checked in the affluent areas of Pitt County decreased. Basically, my tax bill next year is going to be $315 more than it was last year. Now, I believe Scott Elliott is beyond reproach, and the reason I'm going to make this next statement is because if anybody's taxes are going to be right, the county manager's is going to be right. His property came down $204 in taxes, and that's in a Winterville section that isn't in the city of Greenville. And I guess I'm just saying, it just doesn't seem right. And again, I'm not picking on Mr. Elliott because I think he does a fine job and he's got a lot on his plate. But his values are correct, mine are not. Pitt County has artificially increased market values for a lot of people. And in most cases, they don't recognize it and they aren't fully aware of it. However, they will be by the end of the year. A few unusual sales have basically created a computer programming error that produced results that weren't checked, and they're not reasonable. Lower and middle class incomes are going to be paying more. I don't think it's fair and reasonable. On March 26, I asked this board if they could explain why you believe it's fair and reasonable that 30% of Pitt County property increased in value in the last 4 years. Mr. Elliott professionally explained the policies, procedures, and processes, but never answered the question of why the commissioners believe it's reasonable. So with that being said, I know I don't have the right to ask you to respond to that, but I still don't think things are right and fair with the 2012 evaluations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Anyone else that failed to sign up that would like to speak? Okay, if we will move on now to the manager's report.
Can I respond, Ms. Ward?
Yes, sir. Don't usually.
Forget it.
No, please do. And Go, oh, he's left?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to just make your statement without him being here?
Yeah, I said at
Okay.
the time that this man's been up here 2 or 3 times. Of course, I know we're regulated by regulations and statutes and that, but his connotation is absolutely correct. When you've got increases of 30% in certain areas and not in others, and I don't know what this board can do about it, and I even inferred it when this brought up before, if there was something that we could look at, we ought to look at it.
Right.
Thank you.
Do you need to respond?
Scott responded when I said that
okay.
before.
All right, thank you. Okay, our next meeting dates
Okay.
is next on the agenda.
Next meeting dates, you have the public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 12-13 operating budget for tomorrow night, 7 p.m. here in the Commissioners' meeting room. And then we have our next regular meeting, date of June the 18th at 6 p.m. Item B, wanted to make a report with the County Engineer Phil Dickerson. This is in response to the new policy to prohibit smoking in Pitt County's buildings and vehicles. The County Engineer and I have sat down and preliminarily went through all the different buildings and facilities. He then took it back to his staff and they have mapped out the designated areas. I believe he's going to show you here on the screen. I've got a copy for you of what he's going to show you as well. But we have designated throughout all the campuses where the designated smoking areas will be. Pass this down. And I'll hand this over to Phil to kind of make his presentation.
Good morning.
Morning.
On your screen is the new, well, not the new, but the probation and parole building that we just acquired several months ago. Pitt Street on the right side, 3rd Street on the bottom of the page. Back behind the building, there's a grassed area outside the parking lot. And that's where we've designated the smoking area. We try to designate these areas away from the doors and in the most convenient areas possible. Public Defender's Office, most of us know it's the old BB&T building. Little spot on the grass out front, bordering on 3rd Street. Please stop me if you have questions. I know you will. But courthouse, we designated 2 spots. One is the new entrance off 3rd Street, in the area where there are benches and trees and that sort of thing. We'll try to put it away from the walkways and so forth, so people coming into the building won't be affected by the smoke. Also, at the entrance to the courtroom tower, the one that's designated number 3, there's a small area in the grass which is away from the traffic that comes in and out of the courtroom. Sheriff's Office, the borders on First and Evans. It's back of designated little area right behind their office near the cemetery. Tax assessor, as you probably remember, there's a grassed area right outside the juvenile justice wing of the building, and then the tax assessor, there's a small island, the development commissioner or tax collector, there's a small island right behind the building that we designated there. Probation and parole, this is better known as the Taft building to some of us. Designated area right where the parking lot turns up next to Fred Maddox's office. Buildings and grounds, that's an area that they already use. It's actually over on on someone else's property, but we've been authorized to use that property for years as long as we keep it clean. So the where the mental health local management entity is in the group homes. 2 areas out front of the group homes between group homes. Office Park, the Agricultural Center, Cooperative Extension. There's a small area outside. If you come down the walk leaving the auditorium, there's an area that the public can easily access to smoke if they're in the building, and also one out front. If you come out the front door, it's numbered 11A. There's an area there that employees and visitors to the center can use if necessary. The old mental health building now, human services building, I think you can recognize those locations, 3 locations, one to the back of the building toward the detention center and one on either side. Then the health center there, that's one that has to be 50 feet away from the building according to law. So we designated that in a grassed area that will be 50 feet away from the building, where the parking lot that goes north-south turns and goes east-west across the front entrance of the health building. Detention center, we show 4 locations there, one near the Sally Port in the back, one near, I believe it's the maintenance area, and 2 out front where the mostly employees and some of the public go in and out. Last 2, I believe, Bell Arthur EMS, a smoking area out the front door, and Bethel EMS grassed area toward the back. I believe the policy calls for the manager to be able to designate these areas, so if we have problems with any of them, they are subject to change. We intend to equip these areas with a sign that says something to the effect designated smoking area and one of the smoking stands for the cigarette butts. And the cost, depending on how we do it, could be from $150 a site if we use plastic ash receptacles to close to $300 if we use metal receptacles. My thinking was that we would use the plastic ones at least initially. So with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, I'll remind the commissioners this was a report, so we really don't need action, but we would like some input. So I'll start with Mr. Owens and then Mr. James and Mr. McGraw.
Phil, I suppose that for an employee to be able to use these, they do it on a break time, is that correct?
I think Scott would need to address that question.
Yes, I mean, right now, for an employee to smoke, I mean, unless the department head were allowed in their work area, but for the most part, that's not allowed. You would have to go out on a break or lunch or before work, after work type of situation.
Of course, you wouldn't need this before and after work, but
Correct.
My point is, how long is the break time?
Well, technically, the personnel ordinance does not really recognize breaks as a matter of labor policy. You know, in a traditional job, if you're on an assembly line, you get 15 minutes every 4 hours. We don't have that in the ordinance, but we do allow department heads to be flexible, that if employees need a break and they can accommodate that break, then it's allowed.
So it's still left up to the supervisor
Yes,
of
sir.
each department. Now, the first one, like, let's see, the probation, just imagine that you were going to take one from the probation officer on South Pitt and 3rd Street. How long would it take to get from the office out to where that designated area is, Phil?
I'd say normal walking somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute.
All right. And none of these areas have anything for rain or whatever of that nature.
Probably very few of them, if any.
That's it. There is one location that I stopped short of, county office building. That's the only one that has a location that's covered.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. James?
All highways, you ride by the hospital, and they're smoking all up and down there. That's still open to the employees, is that correct? Isn't that law that they can do that?
Yes, sir.
So all of that is still right there for smoking if they so desire.
Yes, sir.
And that was one of the main things that I wanted. So there's really a lot more smoking area. What I'm really bringing out is there's a lot more smoking areas than what is designated, because they got the whole sidewalks, all those places that they can smoke if they so desire. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. McGlowhorn?
One of the concerns that has been brought to my attention, Phil and Mr. Manager, is that it's not so much the designated areas, but the enforcement of these areas. Some manager, my understanding, are not enforcing the designated areas, and I think that's the problem. And if you got an area it's not enforcing, then that's just compounds the problem. Now, on probation and parole, most state agencies, I know probation and parole, the Department of Correction, they do not have smoking prohibited on any of their premises. That's a state policy. So that has been kind of in effect for a long time, that they do not smoke in that area, even though it's being rented. So that shouldn't pose a problem with them, because they know it. But I'm concerned about that enforcement. If you're talking about a designated area, you say you're leaving it to the manager, it's not being enforced. That ain't nothing as far as I'm concerned. We got to put some teeth in it. Thank you.
Okay, any comments about that? Okay, anybody down? Yes, if you will, please.
Yeah, just to remind that this ordinance is not effective until July 1.
Okay,
And also,
thank you.
It's not an ordinance, it's a policy, I'm sorry.
Right.
just to remind
Policy's
the
not
board as
effective.
well, when the policy was drafted, we did not take it to the stringent lengths, such as an example of the city of Greenville that has fines for the first offense of $25, and you can have civil this and that. It's a policy meant to try to get employees out of county facilities or near county facilities where intake for fresh air, for HVAC. If there's blatant violations of it, yes, we will try to, we will use whatever means we can, whether it's a verbal warning or a write-up with an employee if they're just being blatantly violating it. But we don't have a group of folks out who are going to be enforcement officers on this. We're asking for the employees' voluntary cooperation to work with us, and let's have a reasonable, we are prohibiting smoking in the buildings and in the vehicles, and we are asking them to go to these designated places, but we're not going to be out trying to hunt them down and make sure they're there. We're going to hope that they're going to work with us and work with policy and be compliant.
okay. Is that it? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Phil. Mr. Manager, I think it looks good. I think as to what Mr. McGlawhorn was referring to was just to ensure that after July 1st that the department heads are enforcing it, and that I guess you can bring sufficient pressure if needed.
Sure.
If they're not enforcing the policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next
Okay.
item.
Item C, just to make the board aware, the NACO, which is the National Association of Counties, their annual conference is coming up next month in July, which will be in Pittsburgh, I believe Allegheny County, July 13th through 17th. Next, item D on my list of items to report on, purchase of vehicles for public safety. We have been talking to the Sheriff's Office probably since the first of the year. We've had an opportunity in our 911 fund. The state is making all counties spend down their balance of 911 dollars by 50% by June 30th. And if you don't spend it down, basically we would lose it. The only caveat is whatever we spend it down on, 50% has to be on a public safety related purpose. Normally, 911 dollars are very stringent in terms of what you can use them on within the 911 center and 911 related expenses. We were waiting until the final cost of the radio project came in because we had used a portion of those 911 dollars for that project. You're aware our last meeting we brought to you the paging system, which was part of the overall funding strategy for that. And then after that, we knew we would have about $343,000 left on the table that we would recommend to bring before you for vehicle purchases. Initially, I told the sheriff we might be able to look at 15 or 20 vehicles, but by the time we got done with the radio project and the way things landed, we can do about a dozen vehicles, and that's why the item is on the agenda. We have to spend the money, we have to cut the check and spend it by June 30th in order for this to be compliant. We've worked with the sheriff's office. They're in agreement to the vehicles we're going to buy. This is really has nothing to do with the budget process that we've been going through. I guess it's indirectly related because yes, he is asking for vehicles, but it has to do with the use of these funds, which are mandated to be spent down, and that's why it's on the agenda. So with that, Madam Chairman, if the board wanted to, that item is on consent, so it'll be approved if you can approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
But actually, Vice Chairman Garris pulled that off to have it come up here.
But we
then we put it back
didn't.
on.
We put it back on just because you were going to explain it.
Okay.
Okay?
Why wouldn't it be feasible to go ahead and do it all at one time while we're doing it?
Sure, if you want a motion,
Where
that would be
Jimmy
fine.
said first to move it from the consent to discussion.
We can do either. I'm okay with either.
That's fine with me.
I'm
Yes,
supportive
we'll-
of it, whether we do it in the total consent agenda or do it as an individual.
I got some
item.
more questions, Beth, at
Okay,
the proper
that's
time.
fine. You want to let's do it now? Is that okay, Madam Attorney? Thank you, Mr. Owens, and then Mr. James.
Scott, when did you make the decision to change the emergency telephone fund, which was earmarked for the paging? Was it after our meeting in May 21st?
No, I mean, we have, when we brought to you the recommendation on the paging system, this was taken into account. We used those portions of the funds that we could on the radio project, and this would be the balance of funds left within that account.
Of the 550 or what figure?
There's about a $1.1 million total that's in that fund. 50% of it, $555,000 thereabouts, has to be spent down as part of the mandatory public safety spend down by June 30th.
So you've used all of it, but this
We're recommending
$343,000
$343,000 towards the purchase of these 12 vehicles. We will leave in that fund about $230,000 for, I mean, we need to have some balance in there in case some unforeseen thing came up within the 911 center. So we're leaving a couple $100,000 in there just because it's a wise thing to do to have it in that account.
Well, did you tell the sheriff you said it wasn't part of the budget process, but it appears it's interwoven so much. When you were preparing the budget for the sheriff, did you tell him that the prospect of these 12 patrol cars would come down later?
Absolutely, repeatedly.
All right. With that in mind, I move that we approve this.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
I have
Okay,
some questions.
Okay, if you'll let,
And I just wanted to point out,
Our financial
Scott
director.
and I could not make the decision to do this. Once we had the final paging prices and we knew what was left, we had to ask the state's permission for this. This was not something we could have done in February on our own. It took Richard Taylor and the 911 board's blessing to substitute cars for paging system once we had our pricing in place.
Okay,
So we
thank
sort of
you.
had to let all the dominoes fall.
okay.
May I
other-
respond to that in a moment?
Yes,
So-
sir.
So, Scott, the $343,000 for the cars will be tacked on to the money we are borrowing for the paging?
No, sir, this will be a cash expenditure out of the 911 fund. It's not part of the borrowing for the radio, that package. This is-
No, you didn't, or maybe my question's not clear to you. If you had not agreed to buy the 12 cars, that $343,000 would have paid against the paging debt,
Could have been.
Could have been,
which
yeah.
was $500,000?
Could have been, yeah.
All right, and so you made a decision to this way instead of going to the paging, is that
We had leveraged the debt on the radio project in the very beginning high enough to allow this. So, I mean, in effect, it is allowing the sheriff to get a dozen new vehicles and as well as staying within the funding structure of that project.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you for your questions. Mr. James?
How many vehicles does the sheriff really need at this time? You have 12 now. What, and I guess where what I'm concerned with, this 12 is going to be, I know it's going to be a great help. But how many, what are we talking about? And I guess, why did we wait so long to take into act on this money? That's the thing I'm concerned
Ms. Bryan,
with.
would you explain that again?
Your paging on May 18th.
Wait a minute, right there, stop that. What is our priorities? The paging, I hadn't heard any talk about the paging before.
Paging is the piece you all rejected bids on 3 different times. That's a piece of the overall radio system improvement. And so
That's required by the state,
by the
correct?
FCC, by
federal
2013.
or the federal government, excuse me.
You telling me that the federal government is mandating that the state of Pitt County, the county of Pitt, is mandated that we spend, I don't know how many millions of dollars that we're spending, that we have to do that?
Mr. James?
FCC
Yes,
mandate.
that is a federal FCC, Federal Communications mandate that all jurisdictions across the nation narrowband from 25 megahertz down to 12.5 megahertz. And there may be a further narrowbanding, later in 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years to go down to 6.25. Now, the radio system that we put into place will allow that. It'll go down to 6.25. The paging what we have with the voice paging will not allow it to go down, but the radio system will.
Well, we're in bad shape. But I want to go a little bit farther on the number of vehicles that...
Can I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
They show 23 vehicles being requested to be replaced in the budget through the Sheriff's Department, and this would replace 12 of those, which, that's...
And how soon do they need these vehicles? How level more?
Well, probably honestly yesterday.
All right.
But, they'll almost going to get them tomorrow, in essence, within this month, so...
So certainly it will help, but not be sufficient. And that, all right, I have $343,000 that you're going to use, and we had to spend it or lose it.
Correct.
You said.
Correct, it would
All
revert
right.
back.
That left
207.
Yeah.
That 207, Mr. James, is going towards the cost of the paging. That, of the 555, part of it is paying for paging, the balance is buying cars.
All right, there's $1 million and some that's in the fund.
And the rest of the fund balance in 911 can only be spent on things that are approved for spending under 911 statutes.
All right.
Cars are not.
All right,
Paging
but you
is
got
not.
the cars approved, so why not go back again and get more of them approved?
We can only spend 555. Half of it could be spent on any public safety purpose. Paging is not a 911 allowable expense, and cars are not. It is a one-time only because we have to spend that 555. The balance in that 911 fund can only be spent as the 911 statutes allow. These are 2 options that are not 911 allowable ever, except under this one-time spend down.
All right, then the next question, how soon do you think those 11 additional patrol cars he will be able to get? How soon? Would it be a year? Would it be 6 months or what?
Well, we'll be looking at the capital program again next year in the budget process.
And the ammunition, that came up also, is it this funds in there for that?
Well, also, he does have within his federal seizure asset forfeiture dollars and state excise tax $260,000 that's currently sitting there today that could be used to buy ammunition, pistols, or technically, I believe he can buy vehicles out of that too if he wanted to.
So that money, how much you say, 200 and what?
260,000.
260. And do you know how much money that's really needed to buy ammo?
Well, through the budget workshops, he was requesting $69,000 in ammunition. I cut that back to $50,000 based upon what he did June 30th of the prior year and what he'd done so far to date in this year. He hadn't spent more than $50,000 a year prior. So from what I could tell, based upon his expenditure patterns, $50,000 seemed to be appropriate. But technically, yes, he could appropriate out of the
So we got $210,000 that we could immediately use extra automobiles then, don't we?
The sheriff does, and I'd rather him answer that question more
Well,
directly than myself.
that's what I'm concerned with on that.
There is,
Is it appropriate for, I mean, should we talk about this?
All right,
or
if you don't
should
want
we
to talk about it, I'll talk
No,
about
no,
it
no,
later.
no, no. We'll be talking about it, I feel like today, but.
Well, one time it's as
should we go
good
on
as good
and
as the
vote?
other, and it's come up available now.
I know, but what I'm saying is, should we go on and vote? I'm asking the attorney on
This is
the
part of it.
if I can interject one-
motion that was made.
one statement.
And then to continue discussing this.
Yes, you have a motion and second on the floor. So if there's further discussion related to the purchase of the vehicles, it's appropriate to have that now. You'll have another opportunity to discuss the sheriff's office needs and the overall budget under your items for decision.
So we can approve the 12 and then later on we
Yes,
can.
and
okay.
then we got
I'm
it
ready to
on
vote.
the
All right.
agenda later.
Okay.
Yes, and the manager wants to make one more statement, then we will vote on the 12 vehicles.
I was just going to add, I know when we were talking about buying vehicles, the staff at the sheriff's office had said that they may want to supplement our purchase of the 12 vehicles at $343,000 with the federal asset seizure dollars for additional possibly. So that would lead me to believe that, yes, you could use those funds for vehicles if they so chose. But that's really up to the
Okay,
sheriff.
but that's their choice.
Yes.
So let's vote at this time on the purchase of the 12 vehicles with the one-time only 911 money. Okay, it passes, okay? Next.
Okay. Next on GPAT Channel 23 update, you heard from Cherise Speller, who is the chairman of the GPAT board. Just wanted to let the Board of Commissioners know, probably, not probably, but there was a lack of communication, good communication to let them know that this cut was coming forward. I will admit to that. When going through the budget, working with all the internal departments and agencies as such, I was really looking at core services and core programs that were, I guess, core to the board's mission and list of priorities. And knowing that Greenville certifies this channel and Greenville provides the majority of the funding for the channel, that was the rationale behind the cut. It was probably unfair in terms of process, not giving them more heads up. As Ms. Speller mentioned, the good news is that the state, through the PEG channel distribution of dollars, will give them additional $12,500 in dollars that would go against the $16,000 cut. There would be a difference of $3,500 that they're stating they need. So, if the board were to consider in July, if they wanted to do a budget amendment out of your contingency, you could, or you could ask them through private fundraising efforts to raise the money. One thing the city and the county had asked from the very beginning, which was 7 or 8 years ago, was for GPAT to independently raise money to help supplement, whether it was county dollars, city dollars, the PEG channel dollars. And at this point, what I'm informed from is that there's very little fundraising has occurred. But
Okay. So what you're saying is that $12,000 of the $16,000 is in,
12.5, yeah.
12.5.
Because it increased.
is in there. Okay, so, Mr. McLaughlin?
Madam Chair, I'd like to
and
make a
then
motion
Mr.
that we fund the additional $3,500 for this GPAC station.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, it dies for lack of a second. Mr. Garris, you?
I thought we said that the funding was available to meet their requested needs through various sources now.
As you look at their budget, which they submitted to us for next year, they've got a total income structure of $69,200 before our $16,000 cut and before the additional PEG channel dollars came on. With the adjustments on the income, next year they would have $67,500. Based upon their expenses, they've got expenses of $64,413. So with that, they would have a surplus of $1,287 at the end of the day. Ms. Speller was pointing out to me that they may have a piece of equipment go down next year. They may have some unforeseen need that may come up, and that they would then not have adequate reserves to meet. So, technically, yes, they have enough, but they don't really have enough in reserve if something were to break down.
Well, what I would suggest, based upon the original agreement, that we start doing aggressively, doing some fundraising. Because as I understand, we have not done that. But
Let me address that as far as the agreement. The original agreement, as it relates to fundraising, which was in the contract with the county, actually says GPAT may, during the course of this agreement, receive supplemental funds from other sources, including but not limited to fundraising activities. So there's nothing in our agreement that says you must fundraise. However, we do make some money on the fees that we charge folks for taping and that sort of thing, and we do have a fundraising effort planned, but it was not part of our agreement.
Okay,
Well, I understand that, but according to the information I have here, it says that according to the original agreement between the city and the county 6 years ago, that GPAT was told that this was to provide a very basic level of support. GPAT was to go into the public and raise money on top of that with the premise that if the population truly supported a public access channel, they would financially support it on top of what government supports it.
Agreed.
That was the information I had.
And what we're asking is basically to keep that solid foundation that was started. We're not asking for any additional money. We're just asking to be held harmless with the amount of money that we were receiving. The county's already cut the GPAT budget before. We're at 16, and I think we were getting a little bit more than that was cut before, which was fine. We managed that cut, but a significant cut from our budget, 23%, that, you know, as I said, only the state funds were able to make up for us is great. We're not asking for any more money. We're just asking to hold on to the amount that we had, so we can do exactly what that says.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sale. Okay.
Next.
Yes.
Item F, Hope Station, Wellness City. This is the old fire station on Memorial Drive. This is currently occupied by Recovery Innovations. Recovery Innovations is a nonprofit that is actually a contractor of ECBH, which is East Carolina Behavioral Health. ECBH had been renting that, leasing that property from the county for $1 a year for a good number of years now. They've indicated that as of July 1 that they no longer want to be in the middle of that leasing arrangement. I'm recommending to the board that I've actually written Recovery Innovations to tell them that the county would be interested in leasing the facility for a market rate of proposed $6 a square foot, which is about $34,000, $35,000 per year, and they've taken that up their line of command and appear to be entertaining the proposal. It would be additional income for the county on this. Just want the board to be aware that I'm pursuing that with them.
I
Mr.
support
James?
that 100%. You know, we did this during the time we were having mental health. And now it's time that things have changed a great deal. Mr. Manager, I think that's a wise decision.
Thank you.
It'll bring additional funds in.
Two other items real quick, and these are good news items. I want to give you a report on the Early Retirement Incentive Program as to where we landed. I'll let this handout get to you. As you recall, the Early Retirement Incentive Program we launched out there was basically two arms to it. One was trying to incentivize those employees who were already eligible to retire with a $6,000 bonus if they were to leave either July 1st, August 1st, or September 1st. And the other was that if you had 20 years of service, you could receive your health insurance benefit earlier than normal compared to if you stayed the entire time. What the handout illustrates is that we had 14.2 positions that we clear out, flat, eliminated in the budget, will not be filled. The value of those is $787,000 and $787,063. We have a net difference of 15 positions, and these are positions going from a higher level of pay and benefits to what they're currently being paid. So we have a savings of $994,765. However, there are expenses to the program. The $6,000 payout that we paid, I believe, was 15 employees, and we had, I think, 16 that took the early health insurance incentive. The cost of that is $203,280. So the savings for year one, and these are real dollar savings, is $791,485. The savings for year two, which will be the following fiscal year in 13-14, and then moving forward, is $887,485. It goes up because we don't have those year one savings of the $6,000. So just wanted the board to be aware. I had heard someone question that thought that the program was, that we hadn't saved any money, that we had launched this, and just wanted the board and the public to be aware of this.
Okay.
Last item is on the PATH system, Pitt Area Transit. As I had alluded back in the budget workshops on the first day, the funding from the state of North Carolina is channeled through the Federal Transit Administration as well. We have actually had the funding cut off as of July 1 of last year due to some ongoing issues with our drug testing protocol and program, and we have been working diligently for the last 11 months, plus or minus, with the state and the feds to get the program in line where it should be. We received notification Friday that we are back up and operational. We will be reimbursed all of the dollars that we've expensed. We had $230,000 plus so far that we had been carrying on our books. So PATS is back to being fully funded as it should be. We still have the ongoing issue of, will the county want to consider an operational subsidy for the program, because most transportation systems, whether you're a full-blown transit system like the city of Greenville or a transit system like we have, normally do not cost to recover all their dollars. But that is good news, and want the board to be aware of that. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion for
Motion to approve the consent
minus
agenda.
the vehicles. Let's vote. Okay, we'll move forward to our items for decision. The NACO voting delegate.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Elliott.
Of the two commissioners going to the NACO conference so far, we have Commissioner Webb and Commissioner McLaughlin. The NCACC, North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, is asking for NACO to designate a voting delegate. So if the board will consider that.
Okay, do either one of you like to volunteer?
Nominate Glenn Webb.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's vote. Okay, that passes. Commissioner Webb will represent us as our delegate. Item 2 is a follow-up to the proposed 12-13 budget. Mr. Elliott?
Yes, Madam Chairman. On this item, Commissioner Webb had contacted me and requested to put an item on the agenda just to consider additional follow-up to the proposed operating budget that the board came out of the workshops. I believe it was on May 23rd. He wanted to consider 2 items on here, maybe other items the board wants to consider as well, but the 2 on here are discuss use of contingency funds to purchase pistols and rounds of ammunition for the Sheriff's Office, and then 2, discuss allowing the Sheriff's Office to retain revenues above projected income for capital use.
Will you identify the contingency funds referred to?
Right. Contingency is, the county sets aside an amount of money for unforeseen expenditures that come up through the year. You know, if a chiller goes out or just some expense that is unforeseen. We try to budget for everything that we can anticipate and know of, but sometimes things are unforeseen, so we leave an amount of money in contingency for the board's consideration.
Okay, thank you.
For all departments.
Okay, then would you like to speak to it first?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Mr. Webb?
Sure. And do you want me to go ahead and address both things, get everything out of the way, or do one at a time?
They're both in there, so that's
Okay.
up to you.
As for the purchase of pistols and rounds and ammunition, this is something that came up during the budget discussions where there's no spare pistols in the safe. There's a reduced ammunition budget, and when you factor in how much it takes to do a qualification round, so 100 rounds day and night, or 50 day and 50 night for officers, and then you include practice rounds, they're low on ammunition, and we have to have it. And that's why I put in there 1,500 rounds of ammo just as a supplement to put something in the safe, as well as purchasing 5 pistols to have, because if right now there's a deputy on the street that gets into a shooting, he will be effectively off the street until that gun is returned by the SBI, which is usually, I would say, 6 months if experienced ones I've been involved in. When you look at the rate of violent crime in eastern North Carolina and how the potential for it has increased, even though our clearance rate of it is extremely high, clearance rates don't stop it from happening. And I wouldn't feel good about our officers being unarmed or having to take another one off the street just because we didn't have spare pistols. I don't think this is something that is developed because of a failure to plan. I think it's something that developed because the spare pistols had to be used for some federal regulations for transporting prisoners. As for item 2, the allow the sheriff to retain revenues above projected for income and capital use. This goes back to the federal money as well. None of us would sit in this building if we thought it was going to collapse or if it was structurally unsound. Right now we have deputy sheriffs in vehicles that are structurally unsound, that have over 150,000 miles on, and more that have over 100,000 miles on. And these aren't cars that go from A to B at a regular rate of speed 24 hours a day. These are cars that go the regular rate of speed, but then can immediately be called upon to go above and beyond that. And they put not just the deputy in danger, but the public in danger that's motoring around them. It puts the citizens in danger that need the help, and but most of all, it also puts that deputy in danger that's in charge of the vehicle. And I know these are tough times, but in tough times, the demand on law enforcement increases, and one major contributing factor to that is alcohol use. Well, as we see each year, the ABC board, they are selling more and more alcohol, and if you correlate that with calls for service, they have also increased. And every time they start that car, and I can't say it enough, they are in danger. And I know there's been different ideas on how to do this, but I really think we need to allow them to keep the money, because I couldn't live with myself if I knew that we could have done something and did not do something, and something bad would happen to a member of the public or one of our deputies. Also, I would like to include, this is not a program that the sheriff has to engage in. It's something he does. It's something that they work hard to. They've readjusted the rate. They've negotiated a better rate. They've included more prisoners in there. And when you look at what we've taken away as far as positions in the detention center, that's created a whole new hazard for a whole new set of employees that we have who have watched my back several times, and maybe that's why I take it personally. And I don't know if they have any input. I haven't actually talked to them about this. This is something that I saw in the budget that I wanted to address, because I feel like it's something that needs to be addressed and that we have to look out for these folks. Because I know other departments bring in revenue, but let's say the tax department, for example, but that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to collect taxes. The sheriff doesn't have to bring in any extra money. And none of this is for Sheriff Elks. This is for the guy and the girl that's in a brown shirt or a blue shirt in the jail who needs the support. And, you know, when we're talking about money, I know where $4 million is sitting right now in reserves upstairs. And they have operated in a way that has allowed them to have it. And we keep saying we're all in it together, but we don't want to touch certain things. And I feel like this is just something we need to do. And, Madam Chairman, I'll just go ahead and make the motion that we approve both of these items.
Is there a second?
I'd like to second it. I'd like to comment.
Okay, could you hold 1 second? In that motion, do you have an amount of money for the guns and the ammo?
That'd not be anything.
No, we get it probably fairly quickly, though.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I think that's an important thing to do, but we're going to discuss this. So I saw Mr. McGlowhorn's hand first, and then Mr. James, then Mr. Owens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things, I think, as Commissioner Webb was talking, I used to be a trainer for probation and parole and did qualification. And I think a minimum, unless that's changed, of 100 rounds is required for qualification, a minimum. Now, if you have to requalify, and some may have to do that, then it'll be additional rounds. So it is certainly a tremendous need for public safety that these ammunition be obtained, be purchased. The other thing that concerns me was the fact that, you know, I've always been an advocate, if someone go beyond the norm and the cause of duty to do anything to benefit this county, to benefit their department, they should be rewarded. And the sheriff has gone beyond that in cultivating a relationship with the federal people to get more federal inmates in, and I think that should be rewarded in terms of having to purchase more vehicles. from just doing that. Now, with that said, you got more inmates. You got to have more deputies available to train to qualify. So this is a necessity. We have ranked public safety as our number 2 priority. And in keeping with that, I think we have to do what is right to do for this county. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. James?
Well, I've said enough about it, I'm sure. But I think that Commissioner Webb is right. And as far as ammo and the guns, I think that's, well, not the guns, but the ammo, I think that was already been decided on, that they had the funds, but that's a minor thing. I certainly support it. The only thing I can't understand, I was in the Army and I did a lot of shooting. You shoot a little bit and it gets hot. Your barrel gets hot. I don't think they've changed it. You shoot 100 rounds of ammunition. Somebody tell me something. In one, and you go for so many days and so many nights, and you shoot 100 rounds every day with the same gun. I mean, somebody answer me. That
You
I
don't
learned
shoot
this a long time ago.
You don't do it.
You don't
You can
shoot it
shoot
every
or you
day.
can't. These guys out here killing somebody, hitting them in the head. You think they're practicing very much? No. It don't make sense. You're going to wear your gun out before you ever use the doggone thing. Got a little common sense. So why are you shooting all of that? The state's making all these requirements that you got use all this ammo.
You don't?
Can you answer that question for me?
I can. You shoot 100 rounds one day.
Yeah.
That's your requirement per year, is that you shoot the 100 rounds of ammo to qualify.
Okay.
But in the meantime, there are practice days and other things. If you don't practice, you're going to be in trouble. Now, I know that some bad guys are shooting people in the head. That's usually ambushes or something else. It's not something where they've trained to use cover and concealment and actually put a good shot down range. And also, law enforcement officers do not plan to take a shot. They are usually a spur-of-the-moment shot that comes right out of the holster and hopefully into the bad guy. So it's not something where they've set up and they've propped up somewhere or they've snuck up on somebody and shot them. It's a reactionary thing. And the more stress you add into the situation, the less likely you are to hit the target to start with.
Can I ask them one? Are you required to shoot at somebody so many times when you're shooting?
You're required to take action.
That's not what. Wait a minute.
But you are trained to shoot until the threat has been neutralized.
I read in the paper and they shoot him 5. I don't mind he's down, but you keep on shooting him. Shoot him 5 times. I've been told. Am I wrong? Wasting your ammunition again. All right, we won't go there. But I'm telling you, the state, somebody's got a problem. You shoot me, you got me. Goodness sakes, don't fill me full of bullets. But anyway, I support you 100%. I think if the sheriff or whoever it might be does those things that he can build up and get additional funds, he should have to use that money to take and to upgrade his department or whatever he decides. So that's all I have to say.
May I ask one question? You said they are required to shoot 100 times if they qualify before they shoot?
100 rounds.
100 rounds?
Yes.
Can you believe that?
It's 50 daytime and 50 at night.
Okay.
And I believe by the sheriff's standard, you have to shoot at least 80%.
Okey-doke.
And that's minimal.
And keeping in mind too, we're not talking about
22 years.
You're not talking about battlefield conditions. You're talking about conditions where there are innocent people around. You're not talking about engaging an enemy. You're talking about engaging a citizen who is acting violently, but there's other citizens around. If that officer misses and that bullet, say you're in a trailer park, that bullet's going to careen through 3 or 4 trailers before it hits something that's going to stop, or through a house or through a window. As you saw down in another county, someone shot into a house and killed a 9-year-old. So we're responsible for every bullet that leaves that pistol. So you can't, it's not a spray and pray thing, it's accuracy. And as far as what you asked earlier, I would suggest that they use their rounds until the behavior of the bad guy has changed, if it has reached that level, until they're no longer in danger and the public's no longer in danger. But you don't want stray bullets flying. You want that deputy to be able to hit that target every time under extreme stress, and you can't do that by shooting 100 rounds every 12 months.
I agree.
Okay,
Not gonna lie to that point.
Mr. Owens is next.
I don't believe there's any commissioner that's more pro-safety and for our sheriff, for all of our safety than I am. But I cannot vote for Glenn's two motions when you got, number one, you don't know how much money you're talking about. You don't know what it is. Secondly, number two, I cannot vote for that because I disagree with Glenn. I think that the cell block that is used by federal prisoners is the responsibility of the sheriff. I think the sheriff is control of all of that detention center, and that is his responsibility. I'm aware of the fact that the number of federal prisoners got down low, which was what we wanted to increase, because when the jail was the area that most of the federal prisoners were housed in at one time was when we got federal funds to build it, with the idea of getting free money. It built it, but it was also to get a revenue back in to help defer the cost of the detention center, if I recall the aspects. But I think it is the sheriff's responsibility, and that's why I questioned the sheriff the other day when he was talking about the incentive. I think, and he does a good job, but I don't want him to stop doing a good job. But because he can't control the money from the revenue that comes in from that detention center is not reason he's not going to do a good job, Glenn. But I think the way that both of these motions are put here, without any amounts of money, and with what I just said, and if I recall correctly, I asked Scott the other day during the budget when the sheriff was presenting his, had the sheriff requested money for ammunition and guns, and I believe
The answer on ammunition, yes. That's where we cut it from 69,000 to 50. Now, guns itself, no, I haven't heard the need for guns.
But you have in the budget $50,000 for ammunition, is that correct?
Correct, and maybe they buy guns out of that. I'm not sure if that's out of the same lot.
Now, we have also another fallacy, I think, in the two issues of this motion, is you talk about contingency fund. Now, which contingency fund? The sheriff has his own contingency fund. Didn't you just say a while ago that he had in excess of $200,000 in?
He has a fund, federal asset seizure fund. It's not contingency. The board has the true contingency for all.
So we got two funds we're talking about.
Yes.
The sheriff has one within excess of $200,000. He can spend for whatever he wants to. Well, I mean within the perimeter of it.
Correct.
But it's his decision to make to spend that. Couldn't you buy guns and ammunition out of that?
That's my understanding. As long as you're not supplanting, you couldn't not spend dollars you have budgeted this year and then use those dollars to backfill.
And your contingency fund, which Glenn's motion is to come from that, I think that has to be met when the issue arises as to what the needs are, not just to give a blanket authority to evade without a special meaning, a given fund for a given cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Mr. Garris is next, and then I'll get back to those who've already spoken.
I essentially agree with what Commissioner Owens just said. My question, though, is why can't we buy guns and cars from this $260,000 asset seizure contingency fund? You said that. Why can't we do that? I mean, if we're in such great need of guns, why don't we? Because you said 5 guns at $500 a piece, that's only $2,500.
Would you like?
Can the sheriff respond to that?
Yes, would you like? Or if you'll come forward, please, Sheriff Phelps.
Asset forfeiture fund is the designated fund that's designed around the purpose of investigating narcotics. When we took office, we had less than $5,000 in there, and the purpose that money is there is for the aggressive other narcotics investigation. When I'm allowed $50,000, or correction, $40,000 for buy money, when other agencies such as Greenville Police Department and other agencies are running $300,000 in buy money, it's hard for me to get my foot in the door and on the tables where big money is going to be coming back by furnishing buy money and investigation, buying investigative tools. The whole purpose of that is designed around the drug enforcement. Yes, we do have discretionary that we can use in other situations, but I'm hoping to keep adding to. And my goal was even maybe hire another narcotics officer this year and pay out of that money for 12 months and hope that we could generate enough of our profits to offset the cost of that. Like I said, we started out with $3,000 and over a year and a half we've up to $250,000. But narcotic officers do not have new cars. Those cars will probably have to be paid out of that fund. It's going to have to substitute my buy money. We could spend $100,000 this year in buy money out of that account. So yes, it is the only thing that I have discretionary on, but I've got to have some things to work here, not knowing what this board's going to approve. Am I going to hire a dispatcher out of that fund this year? Am I going to have to pay a salary out of that? And basically, that's the only discretionary we've got, and I've got to decide how we're going to use it according to what y'all vote and give me.
Okay.
But the main purpose of that thing is to be used for drug investigation.
Can I ask him one other question before we go on? We were trying to figure the 1,500 rounds of ammunition based on, the information we had previously. Is 20,000, is that close?
What are you talking about?
For the
difference in the money?
1,500 rounds of
No,
ammunition?
it wouldn't cost that much, no ma'am.
Commissioner Webb, certain.
No, we pay somewhere in the neighborhood of
1,500
$25 for a box of 50 rounds. We buy them on state contract.
So 1,500 rounds, did you figure that out, Mr. Webb?
How much did you say, Sheriff?
I think we pay $25, give or take a little bit, per round, per box of 50. Another thing, we're talking about asking for monies in the beginning. I've had to disassemble my SRT team because we needed $80,000 to replace expired equipment such as barrels on guns, vests, helmets that were dated and due and no longer recommended by the factories. So with that being said, when I asked about that, I was told there was no money. I had to come up with it. That's why I didn't come back before the board and ask for the additional 5 guns. That's the way the rules were set at the beginning. I just figured that was the way I operate.
Okay.
It's still my question.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.
Appreciate it. Mr. Garris?
My question, my concern is if we pass Glenn's motion, Scott, Melanie, how is this going to impact our currently level 1 proposed budget for 12 and 13?
Let me answer first, and Melanie can backfill. If the board is directing us to replace the $19,000 in ammunition, then as he's saying, 5 guns at $500 a piece, be $2,500.
But you said 500 ammunition?
Yeah, $500 for ammunition.
And
Probably on the
25
high end, probably $3,500 on the gun, so $4,000.
Total of both guns and ammunition? So we would just reduce the amount of contingency by that amount, add it back to his ammunition, assuming he buys guns out of ammunition.
What are we projecting to be in contingency, our contingency?
We have $272,000 next year in contingency, since we are...
For the whole county?
Right, for all the departments. So, normally it's $100,000. We have upped that amount because we have, we are cut the fund balance appropriation so tight. We have cut all the departments so tight. We're feeling the departments are probably going to spend higher within their budgets and may have a need to come back to contingency more than in the past.
Okay, but how about the other piece of that motion where he retains his revenue? How is that going to impact our budget for next year?
Well, I guess my recommendation would be, if the board is leaning towards that, would be A, to give consideration to it at the end of the new year coming up. If you were to have done that this year, right now the board is sitting on about a 12% fund balance. If you were to suffer a $600,000 loss because he had the ability to go out and buy vehicles, you're probably looking at an 11.5% fund balance. But I would recommend waiting till the end of the fiscal year, till maybe June of 2013. Let's look at how all of our revenue targets and projections came in, whether sales tax, whether ad valorem taxes, whether registered deeds, whether permitting, across the whole spectrum. If you're on target, then it might make more sense to allow that type of expense with those dollars. But if we're not on target and we're going to see a negative decrease to our fund balance, yet we're going to buy more capital equipment that's needed, but there would be a hit. So like again, this year, If you had allowed that, the fund balance would have dropped, definitely be under the 12% mark, and your goal is 18 to 20% as a fund balance percentage.
One final, yes.
Yes.
The other side of that is we have had somewhere between 1.6 and 1.9 million my whole career with Pitt County as federal inmate revenue. As Commissioner Owens said, back when you all built the first Fed wing, that's been a revenue stream. Because we bill the federal government and the Marshal Service once a month, you won't know until next May whether he's hit that revenue target or not, because it comes in after, at the end of July, they'll bill and get a payment. At the end of August, they'll bill and get a payment. So until you reach a point somewhere late next spring, you won't know whether they've met the initial target or whether there's any excess for them to use.
Okay.
One of my primary concerns about this motion and about any action is that in this 12-13 budget, we are assuming that we will use $2 million from our fund balance. The assumption is that that money will come back in through over collections by the sheriff and by everyone else that collects, and also by the reduction in expenditures of those budgets that we have approved.
As well as the third element, Vice Chairman Garris, would be the under expenditure of budgets. In the majority of the under expenditure is when employees leave, whether they retire or get another job, the leg time in filling that position creates leg salary, and when that leg salary falls back, where we would anticipate that $2 million in leg salary would fall back to fund balance, so we don't touch that $2 million infusion to balance.
So my concern is that we cannot take any action that would potentially reduce our fund balance next year, because all three of our agencies, our rating agencies, has pointed that out as being a negative trend over the last several years. In fact, one of them has put us on watch, and they're going to start evaluating that each year. So we just need to make sure that that fund balance next year does not come in any lower than it is this year. And if we start changing the rules and start letting people keep the money they generate, I'm concerned about it negatively impacting our fund balance.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. James, you're
We
next,
have
and then
beat
Mr.
this
McLaughlin.
to death. You got people that don't want to change. All I wanted to do is the money that the sheriff makes above what was projected for him to make, such as $600,000 this year, that money be let him use it at his, where he needs it. If it's automobiles, okay. If it's ammunition, okay. If it's some other source, okay. We're not to dictate to him that. But this board, or some on this board, does not want to do that. That's what the whole thing is. Ammunition is nothing. You're talking about nothing. Because why? He's got the money. He's going to buy that ammunition. I know. If I was sheriff, I'm going to have my ammunition if I don't have nothing else. Common sense tells you that. And you're not talking about $200,000 or $300,000. What he needs is automobiles, which is big money. But he can take it, if he has the incentive to take and to get out there and hustle and get his people to hustle and make an additional money that he hasn't had before, then he ought to get that reward. And it's completely different between the tax department and any of the rest. And so I would like to, and we've talked about it enough, and I know that, I'd like to make a substitute motion. And what? I move that the sheriff be given the sheriff department, not the sheriff, but the Department of Law Enforcement have the authority to get any additional money that is made in that department beyond what was projected for him to make, such as federal prisoners or whatever it might be, to get his department up to standards that it needs to be.
Okay.
You can do what
Is there
you
a
want to.
second?
Isn't that actually the second part of Commissioner Webb's motion on the floor? Unless you're just separating it out through the substitute?
I think the sheriff ought to be given that money, and he can use it as if he needs cars or whatever he might need, and he won't be raising his taxes, but he can get that money to take into use.
I took Commissioner Webb's to be the federal inmate revenue. I heard Mr. James's to be any revenue that the
That's
sheriff
exactly
has
right.
in the budget. That, to me, was the difference between the two. And there are a number of revenue sources in the sheriff's department that the sheriff has in the budget that could, and I'm going to say this, and maybe I shouldn't, that can negatively impact this county's overall financial rating if he gets to take that and it doesn't prop up the other revenue sources. If you start spending every extra penny on one hand and you don't have a way to recover lost earnings on your interest, if you don't have a way to recover sales tax shortfalls, your fund balance will drop. If you look at the statewide trends for all 100 counties over the last 3 years, the average county has added to fund balance every year of the last 3 years. The average county greater than 100,000 in population has added to fund balance over the last 3 years. Pitt County has spent, in exact opposition to the statewide trend, fund balance for the last 3 years. You will lose your AA bond rating, and you will not be able to borrow money at a good rate in the future, which will cost the taxpayers in the long run.
Okay, just 1 minute, please.
I want to answer her.
He hasn't had a second to his motion yet.
Okay, the motion dies for lack of a second. So, Mr. McLaughlin, I have you down next.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the sheriff is the highest elected official by the voters in this county. Period. Now, having said that, there is some statutes that's given for the sheriff's department, and I'm confused, Mr. Manager, as to what statute that he has that's different from the county and the county government here as the county commissioner. I think that he has some various statutes that he can implement himself, and I need to understand that. And I think if once we understand those statutes, then I thought he has some control of some of the expenditures that he can implement. Could you expound on that some for me, Mr. Manager?
I can, and
Thank
the
you.
attorney may want to make some comments after I get done, and we may also want to provide a more detailed written report. But technically, as the Office of the Sheriff and as the Sheriff, the Board of Commissioners, through the budget process, allots amount of money, and obviously we do it through a line item budget for the Sheriff. Technically, the Sheriff doesn't have to come under the financial accounting structure of the county. He doesn't have to use our finance department, our HR department, our legal department, all the supporting functions and agencies. But if he doesn't, he would have to hire up or find somebody to provide all those functions for him. And I mean, technically, he voluntarily comes under the majority of the county's policies, administrative rules that we have, and there's a mutually beneficial working arrangement with that he enjoys. I mean, technically, his $26 million budget this year is probably much greater than that if you take all of the staff time that are accounts payable, Melanie's time, legal time, all the various departments, the HR that help support his department. Technically, yes, you could allocate him a pot of money, fund of money for the detention center and sheriff's office, and he could go independently run that office. Would it be effective and efficient? No. Does any county in North Carolina do that? To my knowledge, no. Now, in terms of the actual legal constraints, I'd probably more defer to Janice on that, and we may want to come back to the report, but
I think that sums it up. I mean, the law allows you to treat the sheriff's office similar in a way that you treat your Board of Education. There's nothing that gives the Board of Commissioners the power to authorize how he's going to spend his money or what line item it's going to be in. He has the discretion to move things between lines. You just have to fund. And you really just have to fund at a very minimal amount, but that's just not the way that the ongoing working relationship has operated. Things like insurance, workers' compensation, liability insurance, other county services, I think we've always kind of worked in partnership to make that happen.
Okay, Mr. Owens?
Just one point of information,
Okay.
and I'll be quiet, like Eugene. I'm gonna say one more thing, then I'm gonna be quiet, but I want to get y'all straightened out. Who executed the contract with the feds for the use of the detention center that the feds are used?
My understanding was you as the Board of County Commissioners.
We did. But do you know? Don't understand, do you know?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Webb?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just one last thing on this. Mr. Owens wanted a number earlier, so I'd say about 4,250 cover guns and ammo, so you have a number. Also, we keep talking about what the sheriff brings in or his office brings in and propping up this and that, and I think we need to remember that the sheriff's office is a law enforcement agency, not an enterprise fund that's supposed to prop up the county. I mean, we're literally under $4 million that we have overpaid the school system in the last several years. And where do we rank in education?
41st out of 100 counties.
41st out of 100 in performance.
No, that's under the per pupil PPE funding per.
What about performance?
We have to get a report from the school system.
But it's not the top 10, correct?
I don't have that information.
Okay. But they spent in a way where they have $4 million, and that's ad valorem tax money. And I'm not advocating that we go there and raid the school board. But what I'm saying is they've created a system where they have reserves that is county dollars that we have paid to them based on what they said their needs were. The needs ended up being less than what we paid them. So they have that. And I also remind their total budget was, I believe, $220 million because there's all this federal and state money that comes in. But every day, and again, this goes back to just a basic safety issue of a county deputy riding the roads in the county in insufficient, unsafe vehicles, and we need to do something about it, and that's why this motion was made. Thank you, Madam Chairman. That's all.
Okay, Mr. James, you had one more thing to say?
Yes, I wanted to say this. I'm not talking about extra money. I'm talking about when the sheriff makes money beyond what was anticipated by him getting out, doing hard work, and causing additional money to be made. And I think every department in Pitt County needs to do that, because things are not going to get better now for the next 2 or 3 years. We might as well face it. You up tax this year to keep up with things, you're going to up them again next year. You're going to see that I'm right. But as far as us doing that, but as I said, he would have got $600,000 this year because he got out there and worked. They didn't better have him but 40 federal prisoners. Because of his work, he's got how many, 100? 100 now. He may have had to brown nose a little bit or work with somebody, but that's life. I don't care what you say. It's part of life. And by him going that extra mile, he's able to do that. And I don't want the public to think that I want to take the money and give it to we're taking the money away from the county. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this is extra money that he is working to take and to get for his department. And I still believe I'm right, and okay, let's go.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. If the clerk could read it for us, please.
Oh, that's what I want, because I don't even understand the motion.
If you'll read the motion, please.
The motion was made by Mr. Webb and seconded by Mr. McLaughlin to approve both of the items that are stated in the agenda. Page 23.
Madam Chairman, can we clarify that according to what Mr. Webb clarified, Commissioner Webb, 4250 for the guns and ammo. I think the revenue has been pretty much detailed through the discussion.
Come back with that motion again.
Can you include that in your motion is what we're saying? The amount of money instead of just saying guns and ammo?
Well, can we just break them up that way everyone's...
Oh, he's made it.
Okay, well, the motion was that we approve the guns and ammo at a rate of $4,250 plus the revenues that we've talked about.
Okay. All right. One other question.
I got one final question. If this motion was implemented this year, right now, what impact would that have on our fund balance? Yes.
And your June 30 performance.
Yes.
Without looking at a report, remember in February when you had all the departments revert back money, in lieu of reversions, we increased the sheriff's federal bed number because we knew that was one revenue in this budget that was overperforming expectations. So rather than do hard cuts, we increased that revenue to help offset some of the cuts we needed to make. So without going and looking at what the new number is that you all adopted back in February when we made those cuts, I don't know that he's over target this year because we increased his expected revenue in order to offset some of the needs to make mid-year cuts.
But the number that I keep hearing, though, is he's over-collected by $600,000.
But we used a portion of that in February to avoid making hard cuts to the general fund.
Right. But if we didn't use it, what impact would that have had on our fund balance if we just let him keep it? Which is what this motion says for next year.
If you had let him keep it and your sales tax came in $1 million under budget, like they are this year, because sales tax was a revenue we had to reduce, if your interest earnings were coming in $200,000 under target, like they are this year, because that's a revenue you reduced, you would lose fund balance position. Because that over-collection is offsetting some of the other under-collection.
And my point is $600,000 is around 0.5% on our fund balance. So rather than having the 12.05%, it would be more like 11.5%.
Yes, sir.
And I am very concerned about jeopardizing that.
Okay.
Now, the other option we have, for those who feel so strongly about this, you can just go on and make a motion to increase our taxes by 0.5 cent. And then that would maintain that fund balance, assuming that his over-collection was around $600,000.
Okay, we've heard both the motion, which includes the guns and ammo and the over the projected budget from the revenues, correct? Everybody ready to vote?
The motion is, let me get an understanding. Go over it one more time.
Okay. Would you like to read it, or?
I don't believe anybody knows what the motion is.
That's what it is.
Okay.
You got it too complicated. Just y'all had one motion.
Do you want to restate it?
Yeah, I'll restate it. The motion is that we approve $4,250 for purchase of guns and ammo out of the contingency fund, and that we allow the sheriff to keep revenues generated as part of the Fed bid program.
And this is for July 1 budget, correct?
July 1.
Okay. Understood?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. All right, let's vote, please. Okay, the motion fails. Correct, Madam Attorney? Got it?
Motion fails.
Okay. Our next item, we've done the cemetery, and we've got the nomination to the Greenville Utilities.
Yes. We have Virginia Hardy, who's being recommended for a nomination to the Greenville Utilities Board. This is actually a nomination to the Greenville City Council, at which they will then actually make the actual reappointment. This would be her second term. The abstract says a 2-year term. It's actually a 3-year term that would end June 30th of 2015.
Motion to nominate Ms. Hardy.
All right. Ms. Hardy's been nominated and seconded for a reappointment to GUC. Let's vote, please. Mr. James, would you vote, please?
Oh, I'm so
And Melvin, appointment to the Greenville Utilities.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to tell Sheriff that if there's any time that he does not have enough guns or ammunition within the funds that he has to function, if he'll bring it back to this manager, I, as one member of this board, will vote for him to get the guns and ammunition he needs.
Okay, thank you for making that statement. Okay, our next item is Commissioner's comments. We'll start with you, Mr. Owens.
No, ma'am.
No comment.
Mr. James, Mr. McGlohorn?
No.
Mr. Smith?
No comment.
Madam Chairman, I just have one comment. I know that some of us went up to Raleigh last Wednesday to lobby our legislators, and we really didn't have time to do that much lobbying. So I would suggest that we write a letter signed by our chairperson to our legislative team supporting the three items that the NCACC is supporting. And for those commissioners that were not able to go, I have some handouts if you'd like to look at those. But I don't want our team to say, if they're contacted, to say that we have not stated our support for those three items.
That's your motion, Mr. Gary?
Yes.
Second.
All right.
Okay. Any comments? Yes.
Can we pass those out so the board is
Sure.
aware of those? One is the consolidation option for human services, which would be health and...
Madam Chairman, I didn't say this, but the manager had better know what we're going to vote on tomorrow night. I don't want him to come up here and that budget don't pass, and this could happen. I'm telling you.
We have the same budget ordinance developed that you passed at your last day of the workshop. We did pass, but you indicated by vote on May the 23rd, and unless we're directed otherwise, and if we are, we can recess the board if you decide to vote tomorrow night on the matter.
Okay. Hold that until we get through the commissioners' comments. That's fine. And we have the motion to send the resolution. Let's vote, please. A letter, excuse me, not a resolution. I'm sorry. Thank you. Supporting those three items. Okay. Now, is that it, Mr. Garrett?
That's it.
Your comments? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Webb?
I met with Senator Pate while we were up there, and he indicated that he would be supportive of these goals. The other legislators were in session, so we did not have a large opportunity there. They were busy with the other issues.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Now. Okay, do we adjourn or do we recess till tomorrow night?
You adjourn, and then you will...
Okay. We will adjourn. Let's vote. But I'd like to hear from the manager relative to tomorrow evening, so the citizens can hear.
Okay. Again, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. here at the Pitt County Board of Commissioners meeting room, second floor of the county office building at 1717 West Fifth Street. The Board of Commissioners will hold its annual public hearing on the proposed operating budget for fiscal year 2012-2013 for all funds, including the general fund. And at this point in time, there is a recommendation for a rate to be adjusted to 68 cents flat from 66.5 cents in the budget, as well as some fee increases that deal with animal shelter, the inspections permitting department, and solid waste.
Okay, thank you very much. We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.